Hey guys, this is week 21 of my series titled 52 Weeks of Reaper. Every week for 52 weeks, I'll be releasing a new video focusing on a key feature in Reaper. So let's jump right in. So for this week, our topic and our focus will be the track control panel, or the TCP. So in every DAW, we do have some form of a track control panel, and there are differences and similarities. So I'm gonna look at Reaper's track control panel, or the TCP, and we're gonna point out some of the key features and some of the uniqueness of this track control panel. So over here we have 4 tracks. Right off the bat, we have basic things like we have our record arm button. You could turn that on and off. We have this button here for the automation mode, trim read, and some of those options. Over here, this is a volume knob. We have mute, solo. We have our routing button, which we'll get into. And we have our effect button. So we can turn all the effects on and off. We can disable them all in one shot if you have a plugin chain. So if you notice, when I hover over the FX, it gives me a little pop-up tooltip of sorts that lets me know that there are 2 plugins here. One is called Couture, the other one is called Lens. And also, if you notice, it says PDC and there's a number that is plugin delay compensation. So it's showing you in real time what this track is doing to compensate for whatever latency the plugin chain is currently introducing. But if you notice, we're not seeing any information here as far as what the plugins are. We'll deal with that in a second. So basically, your track control panel is where the controls of your tracks are in conjunction to your arrangement window. So you don't have to go over to the mixer or have the mixer visible to see your track controls. So we can hide that mixer and we have track controls here. So on the side here, if you hover right where you see that line comes up, this border that separates the track control panel from your arrangement window, if you double click on that, it will hide the TCP. And then you can come back, and once you hover and you see that line, that border appear again, double click and it'll bring it back. So if you're looking for some more screen real estate for the arrangement screen, you can easily do that. And if you want, there is a way for you to actually go into the actions, of course, and you can set up a keyboard shortcut to make it easier to do that if you would like. If you guys notice, today I am looking at a default theme of Reaper for Reaper 7. I am doing this demonstration using a portable installer. Let's see how far I can get with this layout. So the next thing to note is when you hit the record arm button, you now get the record monitor mode button, which you can change the monitoring mode from on to off to auto. Also, what's being revealed is your input effects, not to be confused with the regular effect button. So if we hit this right now, it will open a plugin chain, which is now showing us the plugin chain for that track. But if we go over here, and if you notice, if we hover, it says show track input effect window. We hit that, now it's asking for you to load plugins. And if I want, I can, let's say, load this plugin here, and I'm gonna load this plugin. Now we have 2 separate plugin chains right here. And the reason why is this is your input effect chain, and this is your regular track effect chain. So I talked about this earlier in the series. There are 2 separate places for you to put your track effect plugins. your inserts, and then there's a separate spot for you to put your track input plugins. These track input plugins are going to affect the signal before it gets recorded to your hard drive. I love that option of Reaper, that we have the flexibility of input effects versus regular track effects. So in this theme of Reaper, the default Reaper 7 theme, the way it is configured is that once you turn on or off the record arm option, it will reveal or hide those extra options. So it's a good thing to note that when this is deactivated, you will not see that input track effect, and you will not see this record monitor option button. Another cool option that we have in the track control panel, this is exclusive to any of the JS plugins, which I have 2 down here, and these are native plugin formats for Reaper. So I don't think there are any other DAWs out there that reads JS plugins. And we spoke about JS plugins earlier in the series when I talked about plugins in Reaper, so definitely check that out. But JS stands for Jesus Sonic, and it is a format, as far as I know, that is unique to Reaper. So all of the Reaper default plugins are JS plugins, and there are some third-party plugins in the different repositories that you can add with the repack extensions and the SWS extensions and some others where you will have Jesus Sonic plugins. So one of the cool thing about the JS effects, and this is exclusive to JS effects only, is you can go right here where it says effect. Just click on this to open the chain. I can right click on this plugin here and go down to where it says show embedded UI in TCP, which is the track control panel. We hit that and we get a little visual representation of that EQ. So if you notice, the EQ is here. We have these 4 EQ bands already set up. One of them is a high pass, and if you look down here, you notice we have a visual representation here. And if I start to move this right here, you will see it moving over here. So let's get a wider shot so we can see that happening. So if I grab this, move it around, you see we're getting the same movement there on the smaller representation in the TCP. And vice versa, we can come to the TCP and we can actually move EQ points. So depending on the plugin and how they code it, you will have some level of control and visualization in the TCP with that corresponding plugin. So likewise, I can come up here to this recomp, which is one of Reaper's default compressors, and I can right click on that and go back to that same option that says show embedded UI in TCP, and now we have both of them here. And we can mess with threshold and actually mess with some of the controls here, and we see a live view. And I think if there was audio playing, you'll see the gain reduction being represented here. So cool feature to have, but this is only exclusive to JS plugins. It will not work with regular third-party VSD, VSD3. Hopefully one day we'll figure that out and we can kind of get similar thing happening with all the third-party plugins, maybe with one of the newer format like LV2 or Clap, I don't know, or maybe VSD3, VSD4, I don't know, but hopefully we can get that going. But this is a cool feature to have with the JS plugin. So that's another option there for your TCP. So to continue with the theme of visual things that can be done here, we can right click in this blank spot down here, and there's an option that says show TCP on the right side of the arrangement window, which is just going to flip everything over to this side. So there are DAWs like this, and if you're used to that, you can have it be like that if you want to. Let's switch that back. That's weird. So next up, we also have the option to show FX Insert in the TCP when size permits. So if we do that, now we get this whole section over here where you have a representation of what plugins are here. You can click on it to open the plugin and then do what you gotta do. And you can click back on that same button to close the plugin. So cool feature to have if you want to set it up like this so you can now see the actual plugins. That's one option that's available to you in the TCP. And if you notice, if you hover over here, these are all of the slots. So these are empty slots, and you can click here to now browse and load a new plugin. So let's say I want to load a reverb. I can come here and then just double click. And now it loaded the reverb in that slot where I clicked. So these slots below are more slots for more plugins to be loaded. Next option we have here is that we can right click again and say show sends in TCP when size permits. So once you check that, that's checked off. Let's create a send. So we do that by just dragging this routing button down to another track. So let's drag it down to this track, let it go, and now we have this knob. Once you have that there, you can just hover over it and you will see a tooltip telling you what this is. You will see that it's a send to track 4, which is this track down here, and this is a knob that you can turn up and turn down, and you get some nice visual feedback of what's happening when you're turning it up and turning it down. There is a decibel number, so very useful visual feedback from your track control panel of what's going on with that send and the send level. Also, there's an option here for you to check off show master track. When you do that, you're gonna get a master track up here also, if you want to see that. Of course, there are resizing capabilities with the TCP. So there's the height, there is the width, based on your preference and your liking. Another cool thing we could do with the TCP is, let's say on this track right here with this plugin, we can open the plugin and I can move this knob, then go over here to param, short for parameter, and we can go to where it says show in track controls. And once we do that, we will get that specific parameter right here. So we can now change that parameter from here. So if you look, open the plugin, let me put these close together so you guys can see it. And I am now, from here, affecting the width. And you can do that for any parameter on any plugin, whether it be native or third party. And with this here, we have a right-click menu that gives you some options to show envelope. So you can now show the automation envelope for that parameter. We also have the option to learn for MIDI control. We have the option to modulate, where we can bring up Reaper's modulator to modulate that parameter with an LFO or with an audio sidechain signal from its own track or from another track. We also have the option to go to alias to actually rename that parameter. So if I wanted to call it STW, I can do that. And now it's just STW. And if we double click on this, it'll open the plugin that it controls. And one of the last things that I want to touch on, if you right click on the TCP for any channel, you have an option to lock the height. And you also have an option to lock the track controls. And none of these controls can be moved, changed, no buttons can be pressed. Any item that's on that track, whether it be an audio item, MIDI item, an image, anything, will be uneditable. You will not be able to move, you will not be able to trim, cut, fade, crossfade. None of those things will be possible while it is locked. So you can always come back in, unlock the track controls, and then you will have full control over the TCP of that track and all its parameters. So that's just a little insight on the TCP or the track control panel. I just wanted to bring that terminology and some of those features to you guys in this series, because next week we're going to talk about the MCP, which is the mixer control panel, because going forward I'm going to be using that language a lot more, because that's the language in Reaper. So that's it for the video, guys. Thanks for watching. Tune back in next week as we continue this journey, 52 weeks of Reaper. And as always, you'll see me in the next video.